large there. Sneak back. Okay. Check the Twitter post because you get their intro statement. All right. Give me 2 seconds to find that. Okay. Red Hook Studios. Go. Okay. Update message. Got it. Thanks. All right. Can you guys see now? This looks like the same thing though. No, it's not. Okay. Greeting proteges. The update contains a wagon load of bug fixes, polish, and other refinements. Oh, I guess I should say this right now. All right, YouTube, here we go. This is the most recent early access update, the first patch of the Darkest Dungeon 2 early access. Let's take a look what that is. The update contains a wagon load of bug fixes, polish, and other refinements. Many of these are things the team has completed during the lead up to launch, when our own internal launch build was locked to prevent last-minute gremlins from sneaking in and wreaking havoc. In the days following the launch, we've also undertaken an early response tuning pass based upon data analysis, feedback from the community, and what we've observed on streams. Those balance changes are in this update. Ordinarily, we'd let the balance changes live in the experimental branch so we could solicit feedback and gauge response. However, in this case, we've decided to deploy both the live and experimental at the same time. The update contains new save profile work that we want to make consistent between the branches. We don't currently handle downgrading if people switch between the two, but we are planning to add support for that. Because of this, we need to roll the build out to both launches at the same time in both branches, and consequently, we won't have the opportunity to let people test the waters. Going forward, however, we'll return to our standard practice that we've adopted back to the Darkest Dungeon early access and let balance and tuning changes live in the experimental branch for a period of time before going live. Okay, I don't care if there's any wiping or any of that. I don't care at all, but I suppose some people may. As a whole, this patch begins to address some balance issues that were immediately noticeable upon launch. There's no substitute for having more than 100,000 people suddenly hammering on the game within the first 2 days. That's great numbers. Affinity changes and relationship act-outs will be less frequent, but much more punchier in their effects. Nice. We also dramatically scaled back the most illogical and, let's face it, annoying of the behaviors. Cool. We're looking at you, kill stealing. Although the game is hard already for most players, is it? There are some specific strategies that are overly exploitable, so we've adjusted several hero skills as a result. And that's not me bragging about this, chat. I want to be clear on this. Like, it's fun to like joke about being good at a game or playing on the higher levels of a game or something like that. But right now, the game is too easy to the point of not being particularly replayable because the overall experience remains too baseline similar between runs because it's too easy. So that it may be that most people are failing at this immediately, but as they learn the game, they will stop doing that. And as they stop doing that, they'll lose interest in it. So we need the difficulty to come up. Thank you, Liebermannen, for the sub. We're also fixing some behavior changes with the denial boss and made that one harder in general, which better reflects the design intent. Quite a few other changes have been made. We're going to read the whole patch list in a moment. Please keep in mind that we are limited in how much we could address in only a few days. This is just one step. You should expect further changes too. We remain fanatical about improving the game as time goes on. Early access is a time to explore, experiment, and refine. This can be quite a lot of fun for many players, but if you're the type that would rather wait until the product is 100% completed, we certainly encourage you to do that. The mountain will be waiting for you when you're ready to embark upon your expedition. As always, we'll be reviewing logs and feedback to inform our balancing decisions moving forward. We encourage you to share your thoughts with us on our official Discord. We're thrilled to have you along for the ride. Cool. All right, so let's see what the actual patch notes are. All right. Bug fixes. Do we care about? Okay, well, I'll read them. I'll just read them. We're here. Let's do it. All right. Fix several combat affinity changes for healing and buffing that were broken and now should trigger correctly. These not working contributed to the problem that affinity changes were often due to illogical or annoying things like kill stealing. These not working contributed to the problem that affinity changes were often due to illogical or annoying things like kill stealing. Okay, I don't know what that means necessarily. As a fix for a corrupt save issue was caused by combat getting a state which would infinitely create saves, fixed an inventory exploit, fixed improvements to our saving method to reduce file size, updated the replace cinematic button on the House of Denial to be more legible. Audrey is now holding her daggers more appropriately when forming a relationship with others. So Grave Robber, Plague Doctor's bag no longer disappears. Fixed to combat barks not spawning. Okay. Issue with hotkey mapping for skills in combat. That's good. That was kind of annoying for me. Various subtitle fixes. Fix for missing monitor selection. Updated stress bar pips to better communicate important affinity thresholds. That's very useful. Player information is really nice, especially when there's a bunch of interactions that can come out of a bunch of things that can happen from this information that knowing about is really important. So it's nice to have that in actually in the tooltips from the base game as opposed to have to wiki all that shit later. Fix for meltdowns / act-outs during the hero story fights from driving stress. Good. I didn't know that was a problem. We have never had that issue in any of the story fights, but apparently you could. All right, fix for dysentery effect, double applying on load. Fix for recovery marker not triggering. Disable fight breaking act out on taproot. Fix some drag issues. Quick log entry showing up. Fix for pit fighters death door conditions. I know the pit fighter, I don't remember that being a problem, but okay. Fix to dreaming general soft lock. Remove 1 second wait when actors don't have a death timeline to fix turns being calculated with dead removed actors. Don't even know what that means. Fix for removing a quirk that have you act out of the hospital. Fix for enemy heals not showing pop text. Replace quirk icon reward with the correct version. Fix a token view on death soft lock. Updated game credits. In-game cinematics can now always be skipped. Thank you. Added min cost to the store cost multipliers to prevent items from costing 0. Okay, I guess. I could see a run being cool where you stack a bunch of store modifiers to have super cheap prices and that being a unique experience. So let's hope they didn't overdo that. Fix dot triggering again at the start of a return if you previously quit and then loaded back into combat. That's a nasty one. It's good to know about. Fix for end of combat issues that could result in rendering errors. Okay. UI increased font size for bottom left tooltips in combat. Okay. Additional resist labels for tooltips. Thanks. Added relic cost display to bribe resist story choices. I don't know what that means. What does that mean, chat? Added relic cost display to bribe resist story choices. Biome goal label color update. Sure. All right. Now the interesting stuff. Gameplay. Affinity system relationships. A large tuning pass upon first observation. Short-term goal is to have less chatter, instead have a smaller number of more meaningful moments. For that goal. Affinity changes. Fixed up several important but broken affinity changes. Events to do with healing and buffing. Reduce the proc rates for many affinity change events, especially the more annoying ones. Increase the effects of the most meaningful and logical of affinity changes. E.g., Hero A is on death's door and Hero B chooses to heal someone else. Hero A gets upset. Lore-wise, I'll have to see how that plays out, because sometimes it depends where you start looking from. I guess we mean like logical from the perspective of the wounded character who doesn't know anything about things like game speed and the fact that we have the knowledge of turns, the future order of turns. Like, is it going to be every single time I heal? Like, if I have a turn situation where 2 of my guys are in death's door, one of them has a self heal and the other one doesn't. If I heal the one who doesn't have a self heal, the one who has a self heal who's going next is going to be like, oh, it's no good. I mean, we'll see. I'm not sure logical comes into this. I guess it's illogical from the perspective of, I guess is what we're going to hear about that. All right, relationship act outs. Audit and adjustment of all proc rates. Further iterations expected. So act outs right now are when you hit 10 stress, right? And they normally wound themselves for like 80% damage and then do a thing and then refresh their stress, basically. We'll see. Generally increase the magnitude of things that positive and negative act outs can do. What's a positive act out? Is this just the barks they're talking about, where like the thing happens? Looking for bigger moments and less noise and interruptions. That's congruent with what they said earlier. Added variety to some positive and negative act outs. For example, buffs right now include other tokens besides strength. Debuffs can also include variety too. That's an interesting, I mean, that's a balance decision too, right? Like, again, the game's already too easy right now, so I don't really care if the balance makes things harder. But if you take a consistent buff and you water it down with buffs that are less useful, for example, let's say you have a relationship. Let's use Amorous as an example, right? Let's say that Amorous always gives strength. A predictable positive effect that triggers on this happening is something you can use as the player. You might not be able to always predict when it happens, but you know that's going to be the type of thing. If it's now a random buff as well, and the buffs are only situationally useful, for example, a guard buff is not useful on a character that's not being, a block buff isn't useful on a character that's never targeted, a damage buff is never useful on a character that never does damage, this kind of thing, right? So if we're now taking a buff that's already situational and watering it down again, that might be an issue. We'll see. We'll think about it when it shows up. Relationship stat bonuses, reduce relationship dot resist buffs and debuffs because they were stacking too high. That's good. At the moment, all the relationship interactions stack up Death's Door to be 95% resistant, as well as I think it's plus 20 to all resists, which is a lot. So reduce relationship Death's Door resist buffs, good. We do want to actually be able to fail runs at later stages of the run. New stress after meltdown is 2, was 5. So it's a bigger stress heal on meltdown. Maybe that will be interesting. Maybe sometimes you would prefer to trigger a meltdown because you have the HP to support it. It burns your relationships pretty badly, but maybe as an emergency stress heal. Chance of meltdown quirk reduced a bit. Goal was to reduce meltdown cycles. Okay. Meltdowns will no longer give lost in quirks. These are reserved for cosmic stuff. Good. Heroes. Reduce cap death door resist to 90 from 95. Problem with death blow resist right now is that it starts really high and there's a lot of ways to modify it. And the easiest way to modify that is through relationships. So it makes things like trinkets or skills or quirks that impact that as well meaningless. So I don't know if reducing the cap matters really. I mean, it might just further make these other trinkets and other skills less impactful. It really depends how the numbers that come out of the relationship change. Does anyone know what current relationships give? Is it still 75 base and they give 5 each, 10 each? What are they giving? I mean, they were giving 10 each, right? Or maybe, I think it was 10 each, capping at 95 from 75, but I'm not entirely certain now. I'll have to monitor this and have a look. I would like there to sometimes be a reason to run death door resist trinkets. And the problem is if you set the death blow resist cap too low, you still can't ever justify running trinkets that do that because your chance to die is still too high to reliably invest in that stat. So we'll have to see what that happens with that. So I don't know if I like that. I don't want you to be able to consistently get as high as 95%, but I do like the idea that maybe one guy on your team could get to a nearly unkillable, not nearly unkillable, because you don't need to be able to lose the mission, but to have a very high chance to survive being death door tested. So I'm not sure yet if I like that change. Stress recovery from skills now operate on thresholds similar to healing. Huh. That's a really big change. Does that mean then you can't, like, stress skills are going to be like you can't heal unless you're above 70% stress? Because that's a huge change, right? If you think about how the healing works right now, healing right now is all gated at either like 50, 33, or 25% or less HP before you can even be eligible for some of these things. Huh. We'll have to see how that plays. They definitely needed to do something. The stress healing skills were super, super good. And stress was pretty much a non-issue after like first act, roughly. I'll have to see how that plays. It's hard to evaluate just as a line of text. Tooltip related to stress threshold have been updated for better legibility. Good. Prevented numerous skills from being used on corpses. Not as excited about that. I think anytime that if you are passing turns because you just have to pass the turn as opposed to doing something, I think you're pretty much screwing yourself. So we'll have to see what that means. Does this mean I can't like pirouette a corpse? I can't like nuke a corpse? It's kind of weird. Grave Robber's Absinthe now has a use limit of 3. Sure. I don't think that matters one way or the other. Were there really abuses where the Grave Robber was just spamming Absinthe? All it ever did was every time I had Grave Robber last person left, it was just basically concede immediately because it just took you like 5 minutes to die. Grave Robber's Dead of Night no longer triggers effects if it misses. Dead of Night is a corpse removal. How the fuck can it miss? I guess you can be blinded. Okay. Highwayman's Riposte max damage has been slightly reduced. Probably necessary. Riposte was very good. It's too bad because I've already recorded my Highwayman response video. So I'm not doing it for every iteration of the patches. I will try to do it multiple times across the course of the game though. Highwayman's Riposte crit rate has been slightly reduced. Highwayman's Take Aim now grants 1 dodge instead of 2. Was that overpowered before? Highwayman's Take Aim? I never used that ability. There's other ways to generate dodge too, like Riposte, for example. Or a Duelist Advance anyways. Jester's Inspiring Tune has slightly lowered stress threshold requirement for use. Good. It was ridiculous. You had to be over 5 for that. Had to be at 6 for that. Man-at-Arms Riposte max damage has been slightly reduced. Good. Man-at-Arms Bolster has been reworked. Good. That ability was shit. I'm kind of curious to see how it's been reworked. Plague Doctor's Ounce of Prevention now only stress heals at a threshold. Okay. Hellion's Raucous Revelry and Raucous Revelry Plus now only heal stress at a threshold. Necessary. Adjust the description of Hellion's Winded token to reflect that it persists until combat end. Okay. Occultist Weird Reconstruction no longer has a battle limit. Let the 0 heal bleeds commence in abundance. Huh. Is that the only other heal now that doesn't have a limit? No. I don't think Scientific Method, or whatever the hell it's called, does that either. Okay. Fanatics Blind Shaman's Blazing Aegis now has a 2-round cooldown. Whipper Smoke'em no longer does damage and continues to ignore Riposte accordingly. Plague Eaters, bilious skills are now guaranteed to be used in the next action after consuming a corpse. These things are scary, so it's kind of fun that they're going to use those always. Lost Battalion Knight clears blind when using On Guard. That's fine. Foot soldiers can no longer resist the taunt component of the drummer's defensive formation buff. It's fun. Too bad. It's kind of funny when it happened. It's like the drummer's like, you'll tank the damage, and the skeleton's like, no, I won't. Bullseye Barrett can no longer fail to use Marked for Death because he's blind. So that was the rebalance patch then. So this is basically going to be a slight riposte rework for 2 characters and a bunch of stress healing. We got to go look at that in a minute. All right. Cultists raise proc rate of worship tokens on Evangelist Cherub to 100%. Scary. Evangelist Cherub worship skill now will activate automatically on round start if they have sufficient worship. Okay, I don't know exactly how that mechanic works. We see it accumulate over time and they get nastier the more of these buffs they have. We don't really know exactly what it does, so it's tough to evaluate how strong or weak a buff that is. Using the worship skill now grants a 25% heal and clears dots on the targeted demon, deacon, or cardinal. Okay. Raise maximum damage on deacon's flesh from bone. It's no good. Fix launch. Flesh from bone is the AoE, right? Not the single target. Fix launch ranks for Deacon's Flesh from Bone. Improve damage of Deacon's Weight of Worlds. Actually, I think it was Weight of Worlds was the AoE. That might be the single target. The single target already hits like a truck. Maybe it was just the low end was too low. Deacon now uses Flesh Wraps at combat start instead of on his first turn. It's too bad. Deacon's Sundering Steel removes block tokens, but still respects them for damage reduction of the hit itself. And Cardinal's Exaltation now ignores and clears riposte tokens. Cardinal's Exaltation, okay. What are pillagers? Those are the humanoid spiders. Okay. Shambler mobility. I still haven't fought a Shambler. I'm looking forward to it at some point. The Dreaming General Taproot is no longer subject to retaliation or group attack actions, which cause the fight to stop functioning. I haven't had that happen to me. Fixing bugs is good though. His single target strangle dots will no longer travel with the hero should the line collapse. Heroes will now bark when using Whispering Darkness. Okay. Denial boss. This is the chains. HP raised to 90. Good. Shared skill Paralyzing Fear now inflicts vulnerable in addition to existing 75% chance to stun. That's scary. Latch of Regret Ruptured Vessel now inflicts weak. Also scary. Any of these debuffs are going to make this fight harder, which clearly needed, but still. Bolt of Lamentations, Mental Lash now inflicts blind. Whenever a lock uses denial, also use a unique attack that round, increasing the total number of attacks each round by 1. That's a big change then. Okay. Locks will abide by the 3-round denial cooldown as long as 3 or more locks remain. At 2 locks, they'll no longer respect cooldown. One of the 2 will always use denial in the unique skill. At lock 1, the remaining monster use denial and unique every round. So if you leave the last lock to be like denial of like ranged or something and your characters are only ranged, you're just fucked in the last one. That's gonna change which ones we kill. We have to figure out which ones do which now. In addition, each lock generates a unique buff on all surviving locks when it dies. These buffs last for the duration of the fight. I mean, this is like 7 buffs to this, right? Max HP, 3 negative status effects they're applying, an extra attack each round. Boss is going to be much bossier, that's correct. Fix several hero skills that are inappropriately locked by certain denials. I hadn't noticed that, but it doesn't surprise me. Okay. All right, hero stories. I don't think I'm reading all these out. Miscellaneous gameplay. Updated and added some tutorials, added more party names. Nice. The sleuths fixed to generation so they can appear anywhere between the valley and mountain instead of only in one spot. I hadn't noticed that. I don't know what that means exactly. Battle modifier shaping. Reduced change in region 1. Increased change in later biomes. Increased battle modifier chance with lower torch. Increased power of some battle modifiers. Battle modifier shaping. Reduce the chance in region 1. Region 1 gets easier. Increase the chance in later biomes. Future biomes get harder. Increase the battle modifier chance with a lower torch. Low light is more impactful. Increase the power of some battle modifiers. Low light is more impactful. Okay. Battle configuration shaping experiment. No hands, no hards in first non-valley region. No easies once you're at third full biome past valley. Isn't that what they said they weren't going to do in the interview we just watched? I'm glad they've rethought that, because my response to that was, you know, as I reacted a minute ago, was I really do think the future, the third, by the time you get to the third biome, you need it to be harder than the first biome. So I don't know that we needed to reduce the first non-valley region, but what is the first non-valley region? Is that pre-in1 or post-in1? Double ghoul barricade mash no longer has a round limit. Ha! Good. That was the biggest problem with the ghouls. You couldn't finish them. The valley is pre-in1 or post-in1? After in1, I see. Base scouting has been lowered. Goal is to ensure that scouting, stagecoach upgrades, and watchtower are valuable. Good. Base chance of quirk at in went up. Ew. I wish the perks were not always negative to have. I don't know. Maybe we just haven't got one of the very few good perks at an in. I mean, at the moment though, like if I have a good perk, like I pick my characters in part based on perks, and like having like even random good perks show up removes my existing good perk is kind of painful. Reduce mastery point proc rate at road combats. These are not the primary source of mastery points, but are a nice bonus when they happen. Sure. Change the hope bonus for killing bosses from 200 to 400 to incentivize more boss kills. I like that. Meta progression that doesn't make you more powerful as a player at the cost of more risks in your individual runs are kind of fun. Antiquarian Trinkets, wealth threshold to trigger their powers reduced from 75 to 35 to make them more valuable. I don't know if I know what the Antiquarian Trinkets are, but cool. Fixes to pillager battle configurations that had Crackshot in R1 where he's useless. Okay, that's too bad. I like them early. Guard token description fix to stimulating Polterous tooltip to make it accurate. Adjusted mop cost down. Added disease glyph to appropriate choices. Good. This one pissed me off when I got diseases from like decisions in a room that didn't tell me I could get diseases. Fix mystery loot glyph in caged creature cosmic story. Okay. Avoid story alignment after disharmonious added. Avoid story alignment. Added disharmonious definitions. Holy fuck, try reading that. Avoid story alignment, added disharmonious definitions. I can say it on the third try. I'm not sure I understand it still. Miscellaneous fixes, good. The jumbo trunk is still missing its item art. All right, we need this as a command, chat. Okay. Can I get a mod to put that as a command? Because we need to spam that whenever we get that item for chat. All right. I mean, let's go see what they actually look like in game. These are this is the right direction, of course. Nice to see already a patch that's only a week in. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool to see that already. Let's actually update the game and see what it gets us for that. You guys enjoyed the reaction content today? I haven't done that before. Kind of thought it was interesting.